Hey guys, welcome to 6 Minutes for Monday, January 22nd, excuse me, Monday, January 2nd. I'm Jason Fulmore, SE Russell, and it has been a very busy 2 weeks. My voice is a little gone, been running around pretty ragged for the last 2 weeks, chasing tournaments and watching some great competition. Today, we're gonna do a few takeaways from not only the last few days of wrestling, but we'll make reference to days earlier before Christmas. A few of those. Not gonna get into the knockout or anything like that. Already did one of these for the knockout. At least I'm not. I think I did a wrap up for the knockout. I know I posted all the finals videos. I will post all the finals videos for Holy Angels here in a few days and that sort of thing, so you guys can catch up on that. But yeah, we're gonna jump into talking about some takeaways from the weekend. And after spending pretty much the month of December for many of the top programs running around, kind of going to different states and seeking out the best competition, we're now back in state, and beginning this week, I know Florida's already started their process to determine their duals champions. Georgia will do that this week. Alabama will start as well, and as we gear up to crown dual champions, and then in a few weeks after that, a few of the other states will follow suit, and then we've got traditionals, and we're about 2 months away from the season being done, and we have a pretty good sense of where the teams stand and everything else. All right, so let's jump into it. First, because I was at Holy Angels, let's go ahead and go there first. And really, I'm not 100% sure what to say about Holy Angels. I think the best way to characterize it is the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I want to begin by saying it's never easy to put on a huge event. And this is not I don't like calling out officials. I don't like calling out coaches or I wouldn't call it athletes. Same thing goes for tournaments. But when things go really wrong, it is important that we are honest and have some reflection upon what went wrong and why it went wrong. So let's start with the good at Holy Angels. There were 8, 9 states there, quality competition, huge brackets.
After the spell, 106 behind mat 6.
The level of competition and the coverage by the guys at Carolina Takedown Talk and everything else was great. The venue, it's a Super 32 venue, so it's good. Maybe at times a little hard to see with the way the bleachers are constructed, but there were lots of mats down. But Holy Angels ran into a few problems. So the bad. Well, easily the bad started right off the bat for me when we looked at the seeds. The seeding of the tournament was completely wrong. And pretty much you ask anybody, any of the wrestlers or the coaches in the building, they would have told you it wasn't right. I'm not sure of what the criteria were, if it was Holy Angels returning placers that somehow got a nod over some other athletes, but you brought in athletes who have really high accolades. And a wrestler, for example, like Antonio Mills, who has placed at Super 32, is just a freshman, doesn't have state tournament accolades because he hasn't wrestled a state tournament in the state of Alabama or state of Georgia yet. But for Antonio Mills to be unseeded, and he drew Colin Martin, the number 1 seed, in the round of 16. And there's a couple of frustrations that go with that. first frustration is that the best, more than likely the best match at 113 happened in the round of 16 with so much else going on and really not a focus on just some high-level wrestling, which Colin Martin won 1-0, and Mills taking neutral to go into the third period. So that's a match that everyone should have watched. Number two, the unintended consequences of having Mills lose in the round of 16, or if it had been Martin losing the round of 16, would be that Mills destroyed the bracket, the consolation bracket on his side all the way back through. And it just, that was just one example. In fact, there were 2 unseeded wrestlers that ended up with titles. And there were, 7 unseeded wrestlers in the finals. It was a real challenge. Many of the best matches occurred not in the finals, but in the semis, the quarters, or in the case of Mills, in the round of 16. And that's a frustration, especially when you bring in this level of competition from all over. It definitely needed to be seated differently. The ugly. So, as you can see from this post on social media, things did not go well on day one of the tournament. Now, I don't know. There was a lot of speculation that they tried to run it off Wi-Fi, that the mats weren't hard, like the computers weren't hardwired. All I know is we had a lot of dead mats, and we had a lot of bout sheets being run and written throughout the tournament. And the organizers of the tournament worked really hard to try to catch up, but we are set ourselves back as a tournament way behind the 8 ball. And the consequences of that were that come day 2, which ran significantly better, on day 2, there were wrestlers who hit the 5-match limit, the 5-match rule, and weren't able to continue wrestling on the backside. And we had a lot of no contests in the consolation semis or in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th place matches. And yeah, that's tough. I think it was going to be tough anyway, despite whatever happened with the internet or whatever occurred there. But you add in a JV tournament and second chance tournaments, and it just felt like maybe the spotlight wasn't on the high school boys, like really top programs, and high school girls, really top programs, and their focus on it being a national caliber event. So anyway, I do not want to belabor the point. I'm hopeful that this was a one-time occurrence, and certainly they brought in some great competition from all over the place. Hats off to Buford and Mill Creek and Jefferson. The 3 Georgia schools went up there and took home, Buford took home the title. But it was pretty impressive. Those 3 schools, Central Carroll also finished in the top 10. Several Virginia schools were in there. Mooresville, North Carolina, I think we finished 5th. But for the most part, it was some great wrestling. They just didn't necessarily happen at the right times in the finals, and it was a real problem. The first day of the tournament. All right, let's move on. So takeaway number 2. I already made mention of Buford, Mill Creek, and Jefferson, and hats off to them. I mean, wrestled superb in a tournament that was super deep, and talking about Buford, they've now had three weeks in a row where they went to Casey Stampede and finished fifth. They finished sixth at the knockout, and now they won Holy Angels. Certainly look like a team that's beginning to gel and come together right in time for the postseason duels. I think they see Mill Creek this week for their area duels, which should be interesting. And Jefferson started to look good as well. Sammy Brown back at 220. And Jefferson's coming around. Some really, really good teams focusing in on the state of Georgia. Mooresville up in North Carolina, definitely one. Central Carroll is another one. I already talked about this, so I don't want to belabor that point. Let's move on to takeaway number 3. And probably the toughest tournament, high school tournament, maybe the toughest high school tournament in the country, certainly amongst the top, happened this past weekend up in Pennsylvania at the Powerade. And hats off to Cooper Haas at 152 from Osceola and JoJo Urchuk at 106 from Signal Mountain in Tennessee. Both of them fought their way through, ended up second in what they proved to be, they're lights out, not just here in the Southeast, but they're both ranked number 1 in the Southeast, according to me, but nationally, they're both right up there in the top 5 in their weight class. All right. Takeaway 4. I failed to mention the Greenbrier girls prior to Holy Angels, and it was a huge mistake on my part when I was put on the spot and asked about girls programs from out of state heading to Holy Angels. And I missed them and Riverdale, Tennessee. Riverdale came in second at Holy Angels in front of a bunch of North Carolina schools. Greenbrier had 3 champs, wrestled superbly this past weekend at Holy Angels, and took home the title. Congratulations to them as they get ready to head to make a run for a state title as well. All right, takeaway 5. Excuse me, struggling a little bit. Takeaway number 5, Baylor. Just like Buford, Baylor went to KC Stampede, finished 3rd, and then came back and hit the Prep Slam and won the Prep Slam pretty convincingly over Lovett, who finished 2nd. Lovett's also had a really good run. They wrestled well at knockout, and then again at Prep Slam. Baylor ended up with 6 champions in taking that title. All right, takeaway number 6. I think that's where we are. Alabama gets invaded, and they did. 2 of the biggest tournaments in the state of Alabama over the last couple of weeks. The Scott Roar at Hoover and the Heart of Dixie at Vestavia saw out-of-state teams come in and win those team titles. Catholic High School out of Louisiana took the Roar team title. Congratulations to them. And Social Circle won a small school here in Georgia, went over and topped Vestavia and a bunch of other programs to take the title at Heart of Dixie. Congratulations to them. Takeaway 7. West Forsyth took the title at the Hook'em Holiday Clash, or Hook'em Holiday Classic Class. Anyway, the Hook'em Holiday Tournament at Lambert. They topped North Forsyth, and again, West Forsyth looks to be a team. 7A, we focus in on, Mill Creek, North Paulding, Camden, Buford. West Forsyth is wrestling really, really, really well. I don't know that they beat those teams, but they're definitely wrestling well and definitely teams to watch moving forward. All right, takeaway number 8. 8. Cardinal Gibbons topped Charlotte down at the Bobby Stanley Duels in South Florida to take the title there. ended up 36-35 in what I heard was a fantastic duel between two really top programs and two programs that should be in the hunt for a dual state title in the state of Florida in the next few weeks. So hats off to them. Takeaway number 9, Georgia's South Effingham headed up to May River Invitational in South Carolina and crowned 3 champions and ended up taking home the title back to Georgia from the May River Shark Invitational. Congratulations to South Effingham, a program that I don't think was very high on Lucas da Silva's top 10 at the beginning of the year, but certainly have proved themselves that they should be considered one of the top programs as we now hit the dual stretch and getting ready to crown a dual champion in the state of Georgia. Takeaway number 10, Mountain Brook, Alabama. You know, so teams came in from out of state of Alabama to win Heart of Dixie and Roar. Well, Mountain Brook headed up north, headed to Tennessee to Mayor Garston Battle for Independence with Summit and several other top programs up there. And Mountain Brook took the team title and brought it back home to the state of Alabama. Congratulations to them. And our final takeaway, and I apologize again for being sick and everything else, but our final takeaway, we head to Cass High School for the guerrilla warfare duels. And watch this. Yes, that was Jake Craps and TK Davis. Both Rockmart and Cass ended, I think, their pools unbeaten, according to Bartow Sports Zone, an article that they had. Both of them finished 4-0. And instead of wrestling the duel between Cass and Rockmart, which they had already wrestled previously in the year, they decided to send out their 2 best athletes to compete with one another, Jake Craps and TK Davis. And those 2 would settle the score in a match that was just kind of crazy, back and forth. If you watch it from the very beginning, it's on Georgia Grapplers at YouTube. You can see TK Davis gets up. He leads after the first period. Craps comes back. They end tied. And what you just saw was Craps' takedown in overtime to give Cass the win. In a dual tournament that featured, Mount Pisgah, which could be the 1A champ, Ola, North Paulding, Cartersville. These are some really, really good programs, and they all got together for the dual tournament. Just an interesting way to end it. Send your 2 best athletes out. They're right at the same weight. Let them compete with one another to see who wins. Anyway, good luck to everybody this week as you guys, at least in the 3 southern states, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida, they gear up for their state duels runs. In the other states, they probably have a few more weeks before that actually begins to happen. I'm not sure of the dates off the top of my head, but good luck to everyone over the next week. Look for hammers to be posted tomorrow, our holiday hammers from the last couple weeks. And it's things are just gearing up as we make runs for state titles. Take care, guys. See ya. Bye.